Hi. I'm sorry. I'm processing.
I know.
My head is just, I think it's a really powerful idea of surrounding ourselves with things that we love in our life and not investing our time in things and people that just make us feel a little off or sad or frustrated or just meh.
Welcome back to In Residence. I'm Keith.
And I'm Laura. Over the last couple weeks, I've been thinking about how the podcast is rolling out and shaping up as we're finding our voices, as it's not me, it's you, are going through all of these afternoons that we sat in your studio, right? And gone through all these different episodes, trying to piece together the conversations that we've had. We've gone from talking about just starting to the overwhelm of starting to perfectionism.
Mhm.
And so I recently read an article. It was really making the case that the things and the people that you surround yourself with really help create who you are and what you do and how you show up. Was really talking about how do you, instead of surrounding yourself with things that create anxiety, that create negative feelings, that create kind of that energy drain, but try and surround yourself with things that bring you joy, that bring you happiness, that lift you up, that elevate your energy, that then you yourself will feel lighter, happier, and be more free to really lean into what it is you're meant to do.
Mm-hmm. Like if maybe you're not surrounded with the right people, maybe you feel stuck around people that you'd rather not be around, right? The other thing, how do I protect the projects that I cherish and how do I give them the energy they deserve, like this podcast? This has been my main creative focus for a couple months, and we've only now begun to show it publicly, but it's been months that we've been working at it, working on it, struggling, persevering, pushing through setbacks maybe. And so to do that, you need to put up boundaries and protect the thing that you are seeking to find, or the thing that you found that you think you want to pursue. And then also, where do you get more of that input that's going to inspire you to keep going, even though you bump into resistance or obstacles, right?
Right.
So what are you thinking?
I think when I feel in the flow, I don't know how else to explain that, but kind of in a flow, I feel like I'm more productive. I feel like I'm living what I'm meant to do. I'm most of the time waking up and really excited about what the day is going to bring. I know that when I'm doing that, I'm focusing on relationships in my life and investing time in those, in conversations, in meeting for coffee, things like that, with those that create this positive presence in my life. But then I'm also doing a lot of reading. So I read a lot of nonfiction, and a lot of the books that I read put me in that place. And I often, when I'm reading, I'm also listening to music. And so often the music is also, I have playlists when I'm journaling, when I'm going to go on a walk, when it's kind of chill time. I actually have some Apple playlists, I think, that they've just created, like the happy mix and the like different things. I love it. I have one with like this cat that's just sitting there and it's like bopping along as it's like playing different music. And it's just, I know it sounds
That's
silly.
Just like the cover art?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the cover art, but
the cat's not playing music, right?
No, the cat's not.
Okay.
But the cat's sitting there and it's just like its head, and it just sits there. And I don't know why, but it just makes me happy to have this cat. You've got like Taylor Swift and stuff playing, and this cat's just like bouncing along, like grooving, So when you're thinking about, because I started talking about at the beginning, or, when we're like, how do we pull this together? And so I started talking about all of these things are things that light us up. What we surround ourselves with is who we become. Can you think of a time that you can confidently say, this thing, this moment, this experience lit me up in a way that I didn't anticipate, and it created something in you to go for it? Does that make sense? Like go forward and create, go forward and be consistent with a practice. Can you think of a time or example?
A lot of new things are happening for me right now in the arena of developing a practice. I'm trying to show up for myself creatively and figure out what that means, and how do I each day how am I going to feel fulfilled in a couple different ways. Am I working on my physical health as well as my mental health as well as my creativity, right? So I've been showing up and being fairly vulnerable and open and leaning into generosity and showing up not just for myself but for others. And I'm not exactly sure how to show up for other people, and I think it's because I don't know exactly how to show up for myself. And that's why I'm still talking about things like creating a practice for my creativity, creating a practice for myself. I think a big part of me is wondering, why don't I have it figured out yet? And so I have shown up in spaces, whether it's me commenting in someone's post or in a Zoom call, where I felt vulnerable, and I had, like, while I was talking, I felt like I was oversharing and rambling, and I'm not even sure where I started or why I started talking. Just like now, part of me is like, where am I going? What am I talking about? But
I love how you show
up. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I know it's like, I can label it like it's the people pleaser in me, or being afraid of being seen, but I also want to be seen, and all these things. But is showing up in spite of that and giving myself the same amount of grace that I give others, that feels like it's happening more often. So then many things don't feel as heavy. So then I can recognize the things that do feel heavy, and then I can address them more easily because everything isn't so weighed down. So I'm starting to get a little bit more of a focus, a little more clarity maybe. And I know there's more work to be done to kind of hone that stuff. Even with like releasing the podcast and being able to like write down, I am going to celebrate this win. I don't generally let myself do that. So leaning into the win of actually having published a podcast, I shipped the work. I shipped the creative work.
One thing that I think is interesting about the podcast right now is that you are finding community and people that are also interested in that. So thinking about the small little practices that help us keep going forward, moving forward and being positive and shifting and reframing our perspective, I think they all play a role in our ability to keep showing up, doing good work. So something that I like to do is I love quotes and affirmation cards and things like that. I think you know that about me.
Yeah.
I have various boxes of different quote cards, quotes from famous people or affirmation statements. And so I like to just randomly pick one and read the quote and talk about why I needed this message today. So I have a box of 200 different quotes. And I thought maybe each of us could pull one, read the quote, and talk about why we needed to hear that today.
Okay.
That sound good? Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Here's the box. You pick one.
Did I just do the one I'm facing, or?
Whichever one you saw first.
Oh, this one. So this is, can I say who it's by first or not?
Sure.
Okay. So it says Thomas Edison. When you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this. You haven't.
And so why do you need to hear that today, Keith?
Probably because when I'm facing something new or challenging, I tend to not be able to see a way through. And I need to remember, or it would behoove me to remember, that there are many possibilities or many answers to a question I may have, or solutions to a problem that may be before me. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
All right. Should I do one?
Yeah.
I hope I don't get a weird one.
Me too.
Okay. it is when you are really living in the present that you are living spiritually. Brenda Euland. So, okay. So I just got some shivers with that one because I think so often we even started talking today, right? About
that's kind of like the book you're
it's about the book Energy Speaks a little bit, connects directly to that. But then also when we start talking today, I was just like, I could feel my energy being low. I could feel like my eyebrow permanently raised, like, what are we even going to talk about today, Keith?
You're suspect.
Yeah, I had that look on my face, like when you're trying to give a toddler green beans, right? For the first time, and they're just like, really? Is this what you're going to have me eat?
Don't give kids green beans. It makes them gassy.
That is true. That is true.
And then they don't sleep well. This is a truth.
But I think I need to hear this today because I sometimes over-index on what is the arc? Where am I going? What is the plan? How do we know if we're going to get there? How do we know when we're going to get there? If we have everything planned, then we can just wave at the milestones along the way, right? As we meet them. And so I have a hard time sometimes being present and being in the present because I'm looking at where are we going always. And so for me, it's really saying that if I want to truly be here, be present, that I need to focus on being, I'm trying to think of a different word for present, but trying to be tuned into the now.
You're really living in the present. Wait, it's when you are really living in the present that you are living spiritually. Okay, interesting. So so I don't see that in you, but
see what?
You're like, I'm not present, like, or I'm not living in the present, right? That fair summation of what you just said, or?
Yes and no. I mean, I think when it comes to projects, I'm living in the present when I'm implementing, but so much of my thought process around the project is where are we going? What is the end product?
Right. So I don't think I'm 100% right on this, but my initial reaction was like, I kind of guffawed in my head, like, oh, I didn't really, like, I don't see you, you see yourself in certain ways and I see you in certain ways, and they don't always match. And my initial response was, I don't necessarily agree with or not that I don't agree with what you're saying, but it's like, oh, I don't think that's my lens of you. But then when I take a beat, I'm like, what? Why are you giggling so hard?
I'm laughing because earlier today I asked Keith, this is how we do. I asked Keith, I'm like, if you could be any Pokemon, what Pokemon would you be? Or like, if you were a Pokemon, which Pokemon would you be? And then you asked me, and I was like, oh, well, I'd probably be Gardevoir, or who was the other one I said?
I don't know.
Mischievous, like the ghost with a little, like, really cute pink choker and like fancy hair.
I'd be like Tangela, who's got like just all these wiry hairs around him, and like whatever he evolves into, I don't even know what he evolves into. I was trying to look for like is it Trubbish? It's like Trubbish. Just a garbage pile. I was being funny. I'm like, this is how I see myself. This is how I feel. And you're like, I'm a princess. I have a gown. I have this cute outfit on. Da da da. Yeah.
Stylish necklace.
And it's good. It's a healthier perspective to have, I think. So.
It was funny though.
But
anyway, sorry. We have different. You were saying that we sometimes have different perceptions of each other.
Perceptions, yeah, perceptions.
Than how we see ourselves.
But then I realized that what I think of as you being present is actually and also your futuristic thinking and how you're a planner and that strength of yours of being able to make a good plan is something that is very attractive to me because I do not like being part of a bad plan.
And I show up probably present today because I know to get to where I want to go tomorrow, I need to do X, Y, and Z today.
Right. And I don't see that forethought all the time. Not a lot. Some of the times I work with that thought process of the strategy, but in like a lot of the times the day to day or often it's you've already thought about it. Same with like how I'll bring an idea to you sometimes and you're like, oh, you've thought of this a lot, but this is the first time you're bringing it up, right? But so my initial reaction my point is, I'm like, oh, you're saying something that's kind of contradictory to what I think, but actually it's not. And what I recognize in you a lot is that you're really good at thinking long term and thinking ahead. I don't know why I felt like I had to say all that. So that was a good card for you, huh?
I think so.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I just kind of dominated the conversation right there.
No.
Cool. So we've also, this is like another version of like what we did with Beck Perfection.
Yeah. I
don't know. I think it's fun. I think it's helpful. And I think I even, in one of our posts that we did, part of like the little blurb about it was I like that. I like being able to open a book and just kind of see like, what's the universe have for me? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like what I wrote. Like, hey, does anybody else ever do this? So that also makes me think like, anybody listening, is it helpful for us to talk not only like about the books that like we're talking about, but also like these little things like, do you do this? Like, I'd like to think people are seeking out different ways to interpret or think about maybe what they're feeling or like what the universe has to tell them about something. So go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I do this a lot with pulling, and I have this exact same deck on my desk at work.
What's the deck?
It's a from Target.
Oh, I thought the first thing on the cover was maybe what it was called.
No, it's just another.
So
it's a way to kind of display it.
This is what it should be called. Is this first card that's displaying is "Don't be afraid to be amazing." Andy Offit Irwin. Like that should be on everyone's birth certificate, right? Like, don't be afraid to be amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I love that.
No, and I will say the thing that I started doing a couple years, I've always liked quotes. I don't know why. I pull a lot of strength and courage from them. I just do. I mean, even, so my first job right out of grad school, I liked quotes so much that I have, the students that I worked with actually created a little plaque for me that has the quote that I had on the bottom of my email. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams, Eleanor Roosevelt. It was just so powerful for me because I had dreams. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew that this was the first step, you know?
You thought you knew where you wanted to go.
I thought I did.
Yeah.
I thought I did. But I think this is something that I continue to do. And so especially if I have a hard day or especially if I'm tired and you know how you show up at work sometimes or you show up and you wake up and you're like, ugh. And not because you don't love what you do or the people you work with, but you're just tired and you almost feel like it's Groundhog's Day where you're just showing up and you're repeating and having the same conversations and not making progress. And your email is still, well, in my case, how many thousand deep, right? Oh. And so sometimes it's really helpful for me to shift my energy or my perspective and pull a card, read it, and put it in the front of this little window. So then that's what's on my desk for the day. It just kind of, I don't say it jars me. What's another way to say that? It
invigorates.
It kind of wakes me up.
Inspiration.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, where I feel like I'm not walking around anymore like a zombie worker, but I'm more present.
Yeah, it's a better launching point, right? Right. It's you're recalibrating, or I don't know. I can.
So, I mean, I would encourage folks that if this isn't something you do and you find yourself getting in those energy lows at work or lack of motivation or just feeling like, oh, gosh, now what? For me, this has been something that's been incredibly helpful to reframe, shift my perspective, take just a few minutes for myself to breathe, read, reflect. And you can get these cards pretty much anywhere. I mean, Target, Amazon. They have some really fun ones on Amazon, affirminators and things like that have different quotes. Mm-hmm. They have card decks that are Star Wars based, that are, I mean, you name it, they have them. But I think it's a fun little practice.
Yeah, I like it. All right, let's get out of here.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah.